Have you been worried about how you might run your medical equipment in a power outage? I have been, but I think we might have this figured out.
Hey Provident Preppers, I'm Jonathan, and this is my mother Emily. She's 86 years young and still doing a lot of really fun things. Some of you have seen her in some of our other videos, but today we're talking about power stations, and as she mentioned, that was of concern to her, that we could have an outage, a power outage, and she wouldn't have the ability to run the important things that need to be run. So tell us some of your thoughts about where you wanted to go and the things that you wanted to be able to run.
Well, I use oxygen at night, and so of course I was concerned if we didn't have power, what was I going to do there? And of course you're always concerned about your freezer and your fridge, and for things that I like to do, which is sewing. And so I bought me a gasoline-powered generator, and it works, but it's so heavy I can't even lift it, and it has to be used outside.
Absolutely.
And so
yes.
That's a problem for me. I mean, I can't even carry it. How am I going to carry it outside? And I tried to store gas in the shop, and of course that got used for the lawnmower, and so I thought I might, have a power outage and not have any way to run that generator. And besides that, I can't even lift it. So.
Right. And so ultimately, we'd like to be able to use that inverter generator to back up the solar. But I think we decided the primary focus needed to be on a solar power station, and we'll show how that all comes together. But that solar power station will run most of what she needs. And don't tell anybody, but she'd probably take the sewing over the oxygen. The second thing that was of concern and that we needed to address was something that is simple.
Yeah, John, I never did learn how to run that gasoline-powered generator. Of course, I can't lift it, so I can't get it outside to try.
So that was something that needed to be addressed, is something that would be very simple. Which the portable power stations are very much plug and play. They're very simple, easy to use, and because of that, I think they appeal to a lot of people. The other thing was the ability to recharge, and we'll talk a little bit about that and show you how that happens, but we've set this up so that it's all very easy to use and something that can be accomplished. So we already addressed this a little bit, but your wish list, what is it that in a crisis, and recognizing that we have to figure out what all of these things use, how much energy they use, because they're not a magic box that you can just use everything, but your wish list, the things that would be important for you if you were in a crisis, what would you need to be able to run? Well, in addition to the sewing machine.
My oxygen machine probably has to be there, and of course I've got food in my freezer. And, I'd like to protect that and my fridge, but I guess mainly my freezer. And most other things I can probably, I've got wood-burning stove and so forth, but I think those things are important to me.
And one thing I know that you have is some good solar lighting. So you can take care of that aspect.
Yes.
But we've probably got this set up so that you could use your washing machine.
Oh, that would be nice.
Now, I know, Kylene, that was one of her musts, is that she could use her washing machine. And I totally agree, because that is a lot of work to wash that laundry. And you have a washing machine that will do it very efficiently. And then it can be hung on the line to dry. So I think we cover that washing machine. I think that's something that's important to a lot of people.
Yes, I didn't even think of that. I sure don't want to go back to I do have a board.
Scrubbing board.
Scrubbing board, but I really don't want to use it.
I totally agree.
So, about Christmas time, I got this Geneverse, and I've been experimenting with it and using it, and I really amazed at how easy it is to use, and it's so easy to move, I can just take it right into my bedroom. And if any of you are interested, just stay with us because Geneverse is going to give away one of these special machines. So,
along with the solar panels. So,
and with the solar panels, that's
Yeah.
great. So
it's a great deal
so
there.
stay with us. But as I said, I can just easily roll this into my bedroom, and I hooked up my oxygen machine to it, and it told me how many hours it would run it. It said 6 and something, but it ran it all night. It ran it for 8 hours, and I've experimented with other things, like I think I won't use a hair dryer with it because it told me it would run a hair dryer for an hour and a half. So I thought, that's a waste of power. But it's easy to use and easy to move.
Yes, and you made a great point there about, choosing which loads you can really use. And that's where we start when we're trying to decide what kind of power station to get, what size especially. We have to start with what loads do we need to run. And again, we have to be extremely reasonable because you're not going to be able to run everything you want to run. So what are your critical loads? Things like medical, sewing machine, absolutely critical. And one of the best ways to do that is with these little power consumption meters. You can look online and get an idea of what an appliance uses, or you can look on the label on the appliance and it'll tell you about how much it'll use. But these give you a really clear idea, both instantaneously, you can see how much it's using when it's in use, or for things like a fridge or other variable loads, you just plug it in and let it run for a few days, and then you have a really clear idea of how much that uses. So that's where we start. We have to start with this, and from our looking at these loads that we needed to run, we knew that we wanted a power station more than 2,000 watt hours. And if you remember, there's actually four numbers that we use. The three numbers that we use most of the time are how much storage does it have. This one has over 2,400 watt hours of storage, and that fit our criteria. We knew that we wanted more than 2,000 because we've got some significant loads to run. The second number is how many watts can this put out. In this case, this one will put out 2,200 watts, and it will surge to 4,400 watts. So that was a sufficient amount to run our loads if we were running 2 or 3 loads at a time, because none of them are more than 200 or 300 watts. But if you're combining 2 or 3 loads, this will put out 2,200 watts. And then the other significant criteria that we use is how much solar can we input. And this one allows us to input up to 800 watts of solar. It's got 2 inputs, 400 watts per each input, so we can import up to 800 watts of solar. So that turned out to be a really good machine for us because, of course, we're always trying to balance the cost versus functionality, and this was just a really good mix. And the cart was just a little extra thing that we knew we needed because you're not going to use this here all the time, but your ability to roll it over to charge it and then to roll it other places to use it, this cart was just an excellent way to get that job done. As we're going through our process here, we realized that the sewing machines are downstairs. This is upstairs. That's a problem because, again, this is about 61 pounds. So it's not something you can just walk downstairs with. And so we ended up needing to use an extension cord. Now, I'm not a big fan of extension cords, but in this case, we really didn't have another really good, easy option. So if you're going to do an extension cord, don't do one any longer than you need to, and get it a heavy gauge wire. In this case, it's 12 gauge, which is sufficient, more than sufficient, but that heavier gauge means that you have less power loss, because anytime a charge is going through a cord, you're going to have some power loss, and that increases as the cord gets longer. So we took the shortest cord we could, and to make this happen, I said, okay, Mom, here's my 100-foot tape, my landscape tape. Just run with this and go wherever you're going to use this power. And so we ended up needing about a 50-foot cord to take this down to the sewing machine and down to the freezer. You just have to remember that it's a trip hazard. And so just keep that in mind, that you have to watch where you're stepping and not trip, because that defeats the purpose of getting through the crisis.
So when the sun's shining, I just have the solar panels on my front lawn, and we bring it in through the window, the cord. I just plug it in here, and as long as the sun shines, it's charging.
That's right. We have two 200-watt panels that sit on the front lawn when they're needed, and they're easy enough to haul. They're about 18 pounds, so not too bad to haul in and out. We have a little combiner out there. We put both of those solar panels into one little box, and then we have just one cord, an extension cord that we were able to get to bring it into the house. And that just solves this problem beautifully. We just put a little painter's tape, particularly in the winter, you'd want to cover up that gap where the cord comes in through the window. We just do that with painter's tape, and that works really well.
So one of my concerns is leaving them out on my front lawn. I mean, in a time of crisis, I just wonder if they'd be safe.
They'd be okay, and that's a very good point. And that's why this thing doesn't go outside at all.
That makes me really happy.
Yeah, this just stays inside all the time. But you do make a good point, and one of the solutions that we're looking at for that is to mount some fixed panels that could either be on a roof or on a pole rack, that would be a little bit more secure. Because yes, truly those panels out there, it wouldn't take long for somebody to haul off with those. So we're working on some solutions for that, but for now, this is working really well. Another important part of this process is trying to figure out, are there alternate means of getting the same job done? For example, the oxygen concentrator uses about 280 watts continuously through the night. So we can't be doing that and running a fridge or a freezer. Obviously, we have a capacity issue. So what can we do to reduce the amount of energy that we have to use? Now this is a great alternative. This uses about 1/6 of the energy of your other oxygen concentrator. So this is a great choice to do something like this, because it will use a lot less energy. Now, you could also go to another level and say, during a crisis, I could use bottled oxygen, and have your physician give you a script for bottled oxygen.
Yeah,
that
if you can get it.
Yeah, so if you've got that in advance, then you've got that ability to do that. So finding ways to use less energy. One of the things you can do is when you're running your freezer, that thing doesn't have to run all the time. You can, because we have on your freezer, we have a monitor that shows the temperature. So you can run that just enough to keep that temperature safe, and then let it do its job, the insulation in the freezer, and reduce the amount of energy that you need. So that's, like I said, one of the important processes here is, okay, what can we do to reduce the demands? The other thing that is important to note is this can be charging at the same time you're using it. So some loads will happen at night that obviously you can't charge at night, but then you can plug this in the morning and be charging all day long and rebuilding this back up. And then again, we talked about using the inverter generator as a backup. Say we had several days of cloudy weather and just couldn't get much charge, then you could use that generator to charge this up, and there would also be additional capacity to do some other things while this was charging.
So I really like a lot of the features on this. If I need a light, and light becomes very important when you get older, then I can do that, and it even has different brightnesses and a blinking light. If I need to use an appliance, I just plug it in and push the AC button, and this has a display that tells me how much power I have left, and so that's really easy. And one thing I really like is my cell phone's so important. I text my family every morning to let them know I've lived through the night. If I need to charge it, I can just plug it in here and push this DC button right there. And my cell phone's charging. So right now, this is being charged by my solar panels out in front. And there are 2 plugs for that. And if I'm going to charge this on household power, then this is where I plug it in and just plug it into my household power. So it's just really simple and straightforward. So when I do have power, this is easy. Just plug that in and put this in. Easy as that to charge this. So this is the solar collectors, and I could manage those if I had to. They're a little heavy, but I could lift them one at a time, and I could set them up too. So this is what gets me up in the morning. This makes me happy to come down and play with my sewing machines. And I've been thinking I would have to hand sew, but right now I'm running this off from my Geneverse power station. So even when the power's out, I can push the button and hopefully I can have some fun.
So the reality of this is it's drawing about 88 watts, which is a maximum number. It's depending on what the machine is doing, it's a little bit lower than that, but the maximum is 88 watts. So she can sew for a long time on 2,400 watt hours.
So over the months that I've had this, it's been a source of peace of mind to me. I think it gives John peace of mind that my oxygen machine will run, but it's just so easy to use and easy with this little thing to move around that it's really been great for me to have this.
I totally agree. This has been a real blessing for you and for us, and especially the sewing part. But so if some of you need to sew, there is a giveaway. We worked with Geneverse, and thank you, Geneverse, for doing this. This is a wonderful gift that someone will get. If you go to the description of our video, there will be a link to the landing page. You can go there. That opens today, and it will be open until April 27th, and the winner will be announced on the 28th of April. So you are eligible to enter this contest if you live in the continental United States. Go to Geneverse, see the products that they have, and if you find something you like, use the code Provident100 and they'll give you $100 off. Now for the question of the day. What important items do you need to run in a power outage? And what have you done to make sure that you can accomplish that? Comment below. And thanks for being part of the solution.